I think it's impossible to be a Portlander right now and see what is happening in Los Angeles and not be like, oh yeah, what Trump did here in 2020 was clearly a trial run for what he's doing now in LA. Like, there's so many eerie similarities. And I want to clarify here, in 2020, I did not participate in the protests downtown. My mother was dying of cancer and was on hospice, and that was a priority for me. COVID was so new. I could not risk going out in public and getting COVID and bringing it to my mother, who was actively dying. So I did not participate. I sent funds and I supported friends and I spread the message, but I just want to be clear, like, I wasn't down there. But I have lots of friends who were. I have friends who are injured by rubber bullets. I have friends who were brutalized by the police. At that time, there were men who were basically masked with no identification that were snatching people and shoving them into unmarked vans. My Senator Jeff Merkley talked about this on MSNBC the other day. Like, what Trump is doing now, he was testing the waters out in 2020. And so you may think that that would make me really scared about what's happening in LA, that Portlanders would be really freaked out because, like, oh, we know this well. We lived this reality as a city where everybody in the country, Fox News was smearing Portland left and right. Everybody in the country thought that it was an apocalyptic wasteland here, that there was literally a war zone downtown, by the Apple store. But actually, it makes me feel a lot better about what's happening in LA because I have some sense of perspective. When I hear really frightening news stories about Los Angeles and that there's rioting there, and when I hear the Trump regime try to say that this is a rebellion, right? Because Trump is trying to justify using the Insurrection Act, which is really fucking embarrassing for him because obviously it's not a rebellion. Like, it's obviously not a rebellion. All of the ways that they are exaggerating and outright lying, it's like, oh, that's the same ways they exaggerated and lied about Portland. So when I see things on the news about LA, I have every confidence that things there are overwhelmingly chill. Like, I don't even have to watch all of the footage. I've been watching tons of footage, live feeds on Instagram and on TikTok from people who are there at the protests. But I don't even have to do that because I know what the spin was about Portland in 2020, and I know what it actually was like here then. I know how desperate Trump was and right-wing media was to paint a picture of what was happening in Portland, Oregon, that was in no way truthful. So when I hear that Trump is rolling out the National Guard in what Judge Breyer says is a violation of the 10th Amendment, and we will see how SCOTUS rules on this because it's going to the Ninth Circuit on the 17th. So far, 3-judge panel, by the way, of the Ninth Circuit, 2 Trump-appointed judges and a Biden-appointed judge, have said that Trump is allowed for now to have the National Guard still in California. He's allowed to nationalize them, but that it's going to go before a full hearing on the 17th. And then I'm sure whatever that ruling is, it will get kicked up to the Supreme Court. But for now, he's allowed to have them there. And then he is, bringing in these Marines. But because I know what happened in Portland, I have every confidence that, like, those guys are just going to stand around and do nothing. In fact, there's tons and tons of footage showing that so far the National Guard, that is all they're doing. They're just standing around doing nothing. Because LA is a big nothing burger right now. No insult to folks in LA. Y'all are amazing, but there's no riot there. There's no rebellion there. There's just like peaceful protests and a couple of guys doing some shit. You get a county with 9.5 million people and you get tens of thousands of people at a protest, and inevitably there's going to be 1 or 2 folks, a handful of folks that are either going to be agitators, that are going to be agent provocateurs, right? You're going to have some folks who absolutely are angry and want to smash shit, right? And again, I keep clarifying in video after video that breaking things, destruction of property, is not violence. And like, Republicans get angry with me every time I say that, but it's true. Things can be rebuilt. People can file their insurance claims. Violence is brutalizing human bodies. I want to quote Pulitzer Prize-winning author Nicole Hannah-Jones on this issue. She said, "Violence is when an agent of the state kneels on a man's neck until all the life is leached out of his body. Destroying property which can be replaced is not violence. To use the same language to describe those two things is not moral." I want to quote here from a piece the Politico put out in 2020 during the George Floyd protests. They said that applying the word violence to the destruction of property risks, quote, making the term conceptually incoherent and, much more importantly, conflates acts that do very serious physical harm to people with acts that do not physically harm anyone. There was some graffiti in Minneapolis back then that went viral that said, "Merchandise can be replaced, Black lives cannot." So I just want to clarify here. When I am saying that I'm not an advocate of smashing shit, of rioting at a nonviolent protest, it's not because I equate in any way damaging property with violence. It's because law enforcement does. It's because law enforcement will see you breaking something as a justification to turn around and break your body, or to break the body of a brown or black person who is protesting alongside of you. And they will target the most vulnerable, the most at risk in your protest group. They will target them. So from my position, if you have all that white privilege and you are at a protest and you have dysregulated emotions and you don't know how to deal with them in any other way than breaking shit in an unstrategic manner, you are putting black and brown lives in your coalition at risk, because the cops will use your actions to justify violence against other protesters. And I am not saying there are not strategic times that you want to engage in civil disobedience, right? Your actions need to be calculated and strategic for maximum impact. They need to be moving the cause forward. They're not just about venting your angry feelings that you can't deal with in another way. And I think it's important to make that distinction. I also want to be really clear. I'm not going to get on Al Gore's internet with my real name and my real face and advocate for people breaking the law. I'm not going to advocate for you to go destroy property. Do you understand what I'm saying? But getting back to Portland, I'm not sure if people outside of our area understand that the protesters were very peaceful, that it wasn't a problem until agent provocateurs showed up, right? It's like they say, if that flat of bricks shows up at your protest, don't touch them. Do not touch them. And we do need to be aware that at protests going forward, no matter how committed we are to nonviolence, no matter how committed we are to being peaceful, that there will be a certain contingent who tries to make us into something else, portray us as something else. That is propaganda that benefits the regime. They will do it by just outright lying, right? Like they're doing about LA and like they did about Portland in 2020, claiming that it's a big riot, it's a big rebellion, there's all this violence, everything's out of control, it's mass chaos. When law enforcement is saying it is not that at all, when the governor and the mayor are saying that's not what's happening, you're lying. But also, agent provocateurs will try and get you to engage in those behaviors that can justify the state using violence against you and will delegitimize your cause. Or they themselves will do it and blame it on you. That's just a reality. That's the tactics that they use. But I take a lot of comfort in knowing that the troops are not going to need to do anything in LA because the reports are so incredibly exaggerated. And I posted a video about this early this morning, but go on Instagram and watch the live feeds. Go on TikTok and watch the live feeds of people who are in LA and are participating in these protests, because so many of them are joyful. They're peaceful. There's people praying. There's people dancing. There are people that are very angry as well, but they are all people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. The regime would like to shift the window on what is normal. They would like to make you think that any protest is rioting, that any protest is illegal, any protest is like disloyalty against the regime. No, this is the United States, and protesting here is absolutely a normal thing. It is something that is a part of our heritage, our history. It is something that every American has a right to do, and it is absolutely important that we exercise that right so that Trump can say, has no room to say that he is taking that right away from us, or he has no right to try and paint what protesters are doing as something extreme. No, this is very normal. This is very, very normal in the United States. Their tactics were ultimately not successful in Portland, and they're not going to be successful in Los Angeles. I don't know about you, but as a Portlander watching the folks down in LA, I am so proud of them. I know they are doing the right thing. I know that they are not going to let fascism steamroll them. I know that they are going to stand up. They're going to stand strong. They are doing that right now. And that gives me a tremendous amount of hope. I think that if we're afraid of what the regime is doing and that fear is overwhelming us, then we need to be looking at what the people are doing and why they're doing it. Pause for a minute and think, why are these folks doing this? They are there to defend the most vulnerable in their communities. They are there to defend hardworking families from the terror of ICE, from the cruelty of this regime. People are showing up en masse because of their compassion for others. These aren't pissed off drunks after a sports event where their favorite team loses and so they're going to tip a bunch of cars and light shit on fire. These are Americans who are committed to their humanity, who are committed to upholding the rights and justice for the most vulnerable. These are Americans who are committed to standing up against tyranny. And for me, I find all of that extremely, extremely encouraging.